All right, we're going to go through the fingerprinting notes here sort of quickly. Remember that along the way here, if you need to, you can go ahead and pause the video at any point or rewind to make sure that you get everything written down. Okay, title your notes, fingerprints, and we'll learn a little bit about them. Three main principles used when we think of fingerprints as a type of evidence. Fingerprints help us identify someone because no two people have exactly the same fingerprints. So therefore they are known as individual characteristics. And we talked a little bit about this last week already. People's fingerprint patterns do not change over their lifetime, but the pattern can be altered due to scarring, chemical damage, or even certain skin diseases. And as we're going to learn here in these notes and in the lab today, it's not necessarily just the type of pattern you have, but it's the combinations of all of the things that are called ridge characteristics, or sometimes they're called minutia. I can put that in here for you. Minutia. I think I spelled that right. You'll see it on the website in just a moment. It's not the pattern, it's the ridge characteristics in combination that make them unique from one person to the next. We'll see some examples of that today. In general, across the population, about 60% of people have a pattern that is called a loop. About 35% of the population has a pattern that is known as a whorl, and about 5% of the population have what are called arches. Now, something else you'll want to know, the study of identifying fingerprints is called dactyloscopy. Scope or scopy meaning identification, and dactylo meaning digit. So when we take fingerprints, therefore what they're actually called scientifically are dactylograms. Gram is a suffix that means drawing or writing or imprint, and they're again digits. So we're taking dactylograms, which we can simply call fingerprints. Okay, three main patterns. Just like we said before, arches, loops, and whorls. Now you could go ahead and write that down into your notes. And then each of those types has a few different distinguishing features that can further separate them. Now you do not have to write anything down on the bottom half of this slide. I will give you a handout. The substitute will give you a handout in order to put those into your notes. You don't have to write this part down. We are going to talk about these and look at them, however. So, with arches, arch generally is the most simple type. It just means that there are lines that come in from one side, sort of rise up, and then lower back down and go out the other side again. That's an arch. Again, this is not information you have to write down. You will have it on a handout. We're just talking about it in these notes. So two types of arches. There is a plain arch, okay, which you could kind of characterize as being a little bit more shallow type of hill or arch. And then there are tented arches, which are much sharper and they rise up farther. All right, for loops, now loops can be a little more difficult. A loop means that the lines come in from one side, loop around, and come back out on the same side. Here again, here's another example. Come in on one side and loop around, come back out on the same side. Now the difficulty comes in trying to identify the different types of loops. There are what are called ulnar loops and radial loops. Okay, and for some help with that, I've linked a website that we'll go to in just a moment. Radial loop means that the loop opens toward the radial bone. Okay, the ulnar loop means that the loop opens toward the ulna bone. So when we're talking about the opening of it here, these arrows are showing the side that opens. Okay, not the direction that the loop points towards, but the way that the lines open towards. Okay. Now, in order to properly identify an ulnar loop or a radial loop, you need to know which hand it comes from, which side of the body, the right or the left. Otherwise, you can't tell. Okay, so let's look at this website over here, not Pandora. Let's look at this website. Fingerprint Samples. I'm going to let you look this over later because it's linked, but down here, just to remember, 2 bones in your forearm. You have the ulna bone, which connects to your pinky side, and you have the radius bone, which always connects to your thumb side. So you can go ahead and turn your wrist in front of you now and see how those bones sort of rotate with your arm. Now, if we think about the loop opening, you have to remember that a print would be taken with the palms facing down. So right now, if you do this, if you put your palms on the table, this will help you figure out which way the ulna bone and the radius bone are going. If you look at any of your fingerprints now and your wrist, you can notice that on your left hand, for example, your pinky is out on the left edge, and your ulna bone would be out on the left edge. So therefore, any prints from your left hand that have the openings pointing to the left would be ulnar loops. Okay, we'll stay on the left hand for a minute. Any loops that open towards the right then would be radial loops. So again, from the left hand, if they open to the right, they're going to be radial loops. Okay, now look at your right hand. Your thumb is on the left inside edge of your hand as it's palm down on the table. If you have any fingerprint patterns that open towards the left, those are going to be radial loops. And if you have any prints from your right hand, the loop pattern opening to the left, those are going to be ulnar loops. Okay, take a moment here and look at this website if you need to in order to try and help a little more with that. Alright, let's finish this up here. A couple other types. We have whorls, 2 types of whorls. A plain whorl looks mostly circular, as it says, very plain looking. And a central pocket, it's a little bit more oval shaped. Okay. 2 other types of whorls. A double loop whorl that'll be very easy to distinguish. It looks like a swirling set of loops, one over the other. And then an accidental whorl. An accidental whorl kind of looks like 2 loops got trapped inside of each other and there's no opening edge. Alright. If you'd like to, here's a little bit of practice. You could try to see if you can identify these ones. Again, you could pause the video here and we can go through these a little more on Thursday. But at this point, we're going to go ahead and try to take some of our own prints. Now what you want to do is try to get a full print, okay, not just a partial. And I'm going to show you a video that hopefully will help with that. But you're basically going to need from the tip of your finger down to the first crease, so you'll need ink over the whole portion of your finger, and you'll need to lay your finger nice and flat. Sometimes on the edge of the table will help. Here's a couple of pointers. It says roll the pad portion of your finger or thumb. So when you roll it, you maybe have seen this done before, and the video will show it. You can take your finger and lay down at an angle one edge of your finger, roll it across the flat part up to the other edge of your finger. That's going to get ink over the whole section of your finger. Okay, you really do not have to push down hard. Okay, that's very true. In order to get enough ink, you don't have to push extremely hard. Okay. Then what you're going to do to take the print is roll that pad portion back across the paper that you're going to leave it on. Okay, and I don't have any magnifying lenses today for you to look through, but we can talk a little bit more about that on Thursday as well. Alright, after this video here, go back to Moodle and there will be a second video on how to take the ink prints. Please, please, please practice many times on scratch paper. I've also written those instructions on Moodle, but practice many times before you try to put them onto the final paper. You want to think about how hard you have to press and how much ink you have on your finger and whether or not your finger is shaking or smudging. So practice lots before you get your final prints. Alright, thanks.